So yeah, let's get started. I'm just first wanted to say thank you all for making time to be here. I know it's a little bit of a different time, but part of the reason we're doing these reader gatherings are that the virtual coffee bar, which is set for the third Wednesday every other month at 2 p.m. Well, that time does not work for everyone, right? And it also is more general. It's not so much based on, magazine folks and folks that are curating their shows. So our hope is that we're offering these reader gatherings as a way of fine tuning and bringing in folks to talk about the subject matters that are very relevant to the assignments that they are doing. But we also are inviting the broad scope of our volunteers to be a part of that too. So some of the folks on the call today may not be folks that are doing magazines or curating their shows, but at least they can join in and hear a little bit about these type of assignments and also learn from that too. So yeah, that's what we're looking at today. I want to thank Nick for making time to be here too, and Felly might pop in and say hello just to share her thanks to you all as well. So we may have a few other folks popping in. But otherwise, I think we'll get started with our introductory pieces. Just a few, and there's Colin. Thanks for making time for us too. There's Colin down at the front desk too. So we got a great group of folks on our call today. So glad that you guys could be here. And I'd like us to start by, you can see there in the chat, sharing your location, as some of us are on different coasts, and also then telling us a little bit about your current assignment. And then just something that maybe you've learned from the assignments that you're reading. I love how much different assignments we have from all different walks of life, right? And all different types. So it's great to hear if you've learned anything that you'd like to share, or if there's something you learned about how to better do that assignment too. You're welcome to share those things. So we'll get started with our introductions then. Actually, Nick, do you have anything to add to that before I pass it along?
Not really. I don't. Our slides maybe are out of order. We did have this one, which we can come back to.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Yes,
Oh,
thank you, Nick. That is the thing that we should add. Uh, so and I've got one other person joining in here too. Um, I'm not sure who that is. But yes, in terms of the second slide there, as you can see, one of the things we also wanted to talk about is what is a curated show? And I will turn it over to Nick to kind of speak to that unless, no, maybe not.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Uh, yeah, we spent some time this week talking about this, and kind of worth discussing as we kind of talk today, but we said we'd put something in place at the beginning just to kind of outline what we define or understand as a curated show, and even that word curated was some discussion. But anyway, so it is programming around a specific topic, maybe as distinct from a newspaper or a specific publication. So the Wichita Eagle obviously is one newspaper. So it's not curated. It's really making that one publication. Whereas a curated show may be around a topic like our car program. The name is just not coming to my brain right now. Or short stories, or gardening, or these other topic-based programming. So that's the first thing. It's a specific topic rather than a specific publication. So it can include content from a variety of sources, publications, online sources, and those are kind of all defined at the beginning, at the outset, and in our description, so our listeners know what to expect. And then the curated piece is really the speaks to the role that the reader has, the volunteer has in selecting articles, curating the content, choosing. I would also say that's part of the delivery, that you're as a curator, you're saying now, rather than a moving to this page of a newspaper, or you might want to add additional narrative, more additional speaking, more words that clue the listener in as why you're moving from one publication to another, why you're not so much why you're choosing, but that kind of hints at the logic behind that idea of curation. So you're offering a curated experience from a variety of sources around a specific topic. So it's pretty simple, but I know readers make a lot of decisions, so I want to acknowledge that as well. But for today, this was kind of one of the topics that we're focusing on. This is our attempt at defining a curated show. I'm sure we can have more discussion as we go. Should we just go into intros, Trish?
Sure, I think that sounds great. And Feli has just joined us too, and I know you won't have time to be here for the whole conversation, Feli. So if you would just say hello to everyone, and I know some of our folks may not have seen you in a while, so um, just want to thank you for making time for us.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to pop in and say hello and thank you for volunteering. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, I am the semi-new director of Audio Reader in Kansas Public Radio. And I worked for Audio Reader a long time ago, about 9 years ago, in the development department. So some of you I know from way back when, and some of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, but I know how important you are to our services. So thank you so much, and thank you for being here today.
Definitely. We are so grateful, and as Nick mentioned, and as Feli brought to our attention too, it is the volunteers that make some of those choices, especially in these type of assignments. And they can be pretty challenging choices, or you're digging and searching and trying to find the right content to really fill out the show in a way that is going to engage our listeners, but also provide them with information that's not only necessary, but also entertaining, and brings a little bit of joy to their life, as well as that knowledge and as well as that connection to the community. So, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all the hard work that you put into each and every one of your shows. We certainly appreciate it. And I know the listeners do too. So, let us get started with some connections on hearing about where you all are from, and also or located, where you're reading from, because it sounds like we have some folks that are reading from different places today than their normal location. And then also, if we can just talk about your current assignment, and then something maybe you have learned in doing that assignment, whether it's about Audio Reader, whether it's about your community, whether it's about life in general. Love those. Well, this can be a philosophical conversation, defining curated and hearing about all the wonderful things we've learned. So Sally, if you would start, I'm going to have you start because you're one of our few folks that is joining just pretty new to our community.
Correct. Actually, I just started, I guess if you want to say according to school years, just the first spring semester of 2024. I do the telephone reader. So I just wanted to find out about the other ones, the magazine and the curated. That's why I'm here today. I do the Kansas City Star business. That is not what I would call my most favorite topic, but I guess what I have learned is that I can still go ahead and do it, even though that's not my main interest. And I'm just thinking, if I can sub in some places, I need to know more about what you guys are doing.
That's wonderful, Sally. And I think you saw that very enthusiastic thumbs up from Nick, because we do really appreciate that willingness of our volunteers to step up and read what needs to be read, because our listeners out there do want to hear about the business and the Kansas City Star and that section. So we are grateful for that. Okay, Melinda, I see you there as next on my screen. So if you would, and then after Melinda, Bev.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Melinda Carney. I'm in Olathe, but right now I'm in Oregon, but this is temporary. I read Two on the Aisle, which is an arts and entertainment broadcast. And I started reading Two on the Aisle in April of 2020, right smack dab when the pandemic started. And there was nothing going on with arts and entertainment because everything was closed. So what that really taught me was resourcefulness of where I can find articles and how I can spin articles to make them interesting. And I think that has become, in the 4 years that I've done this little program and I kind of got each other through the pandemic. And I've learned so much about creating a whole, not just the articles have to kind of go together, and I want them to tell a story. The articles that I select have to tell a story, or I'm not interested. How is a listener going to be interested? I don't read schedules. I don't read here's what's coming. Now, if it's come and there's a specific story about an actor, I will read that. If there's a review, I will not read a review of a play that is already gone. Um, I do read I do read movie reviews, but I put it in the terms of here's the stories that are being told by current releases. Um, I use a lot of New York Times, and that has changed my ability to find good sources, stuff in the Star that pops up. Um, I love it when feel good stories pop up. Like recently, there was a story about blind dancing classes for the blind. That was awesome. Recently, I read an article from the New York Times about fake snow, how they create snow that is used to create a setting in the movies. And especially with this Hallmark movie going on, that has been so much fun to read about the Hallmark movie with Travis um, and 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 the Swifties and all of that, um, because that's their romance, and then here's the Hallmark movie romance. Anyway, um, I've learned I learned so much from what I read. One of my most consistent sources my husband found, like right after I started reading. It's a British import called Yours Retro, and it's all about his classic films, classic television, classic actors. So it never goes out of date. And I use it a lot, and it's wonderful. And I learn so much about actors, and I'm going to really try to condense this. Um, so I learned so much from reading, and I love the variety of sources. It makes it really interesting for me. My biggest challenge is what I call the transitions. You get an article, and then you have to connect. I do anyway. I'm a retired speech teacher, so I have to have everything connect. I always have transitions to connect from one article to the next. I've learned to edit when I broadcast, which has been huge because I would realize I'd forgotten something in the broadcast, and I'm like, oh man, I have to go clear back or erase whatever. I've learned how to cut and paste, little technology stuff, which has changed my life. I do add sound when I can, um, which is which just chills me. I love doing it so much. I read a feature about Charlie Chaplin, and there was a speech from a film, The Great Dictator, and in the article, it read that there was a sidebar that had the written out speech that Charlie Chaplin delivered at that film, and it's a speech to humanity. It's absolutely beautiful. I was able to go to Google and find Charlie Chaplin's voice reading the speech from the film, which is way more powerful than me. So, anyway, I love what I do. I love what I learn. I love putting together a whole every week with I have to connect the stories and it kind of goes start to finish. It enriches my life tremendously because of what I learn, and it's absolutely my pleasure to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Melinda. And Bev, I know I said you would go next, but Rosemary, I'm afraid you're gonna have to get off. Would you mind if I could switch the two of you so that Rosemary could speak before she has to get off? Is that okay, Bev?
Sure. I'm having a difficult. I could hardly hear Melinda. I don't
Okay.
know is that true for others as well?
No, I could
Uh,
hear.
every time I go to adjust the sound, I get kicked off and I have to come back in. So
Oh
I'm not going to
no.
do that. You can hear me, I presume.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, it's fine. All right.
You were just a
Okay.
little quiet, Melinda. If you can turn up your mic and your settings, I think you'll be
I
fine.
did, but
Okay.
I'm in such a weird location right now. I'm
You're
not
not
sure.
you're not in the Cardi studio
I'm
for
not
the
in the
arts.
Carney Arts Center. Right.
Oh,
Well, I hope you got my enthusiasm, even if you
yes.
didn't get all.
I heard you. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Um,
I'm going to turn it over to Rosemary for a minute. Thank
okay,
you.
sure. Hi, hello everyone. My name is Rosemary. I live in Virginia, Northern Virginia, so I'm a little bit away from you guys. One day on my list is I will come to Kansas and get to see the real building. I am currently assigned to work on the African American Hour. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Ooh, hear
Okay,
me?
good. African American Hour, along with my partner Byron.
All of that
When
noise is being heard.
and when I started, there was really not very much info. I had a list of the newspapers that were used, but it sort of was starting over. And I think I must say that I kind of stick to the same old newspapers, and I'm hoping to change that up a bit. Byron is really good about picking different newspapers and magazines and reading from them. So our section is about African American news, pretty much. That's what we've been focusing on. And I think I started in 2020 or 2021. It was during the pandemic, so that was like the blank era. I don't really know what was happening. And what I learned was one of my very close friends had a stroke and she lost part of her vision. So it's really made me more aware of just being grateful for what we can do as volunteers and how much it means to people who really can't see, or she lost part of her sight. She can see some things, but not everything. And it's made me more passionate about doing this and sticking to it and doing it cheerfully instead of complaining like I used to do. Doing it a little bit more cheerfully and just realizing what a difference it makes. Did I answer all the questions? Did I pass?
Yes, indeed. Thank
I'm
you.
a retired teacher as well, so we have that thing going on in our heads.
Can I ask Rosemary a question?
Yes.
How did you get hooked up with Audio Reader if you're in Virginia?
Right. So I used to do reading for a company in in Maryland called the Washington Ear. And during the pandemic, I was trying to figure out what to do, like everyone else. And I asked if I could come and read, and they said no, because they were only taking people who were currently reading. Like they didn't have the facility to juggle. You know, we're still trying to figure things out during the pandemic. And they said there are a lot of other places, even Kansas University. And that's how I said, oh, let me call them.
Wow.
And surprisingly, I passed that very difficult test. And the rest was history.
That is awesome.
Thank you. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Rosemary, and thank you for sharing that story too. I think it does highlight that we sometimes forget that some of our listeners have partial sight or come to the loss of sight later in life, and that there's all different ways that folks have limited access to the printed word. And so if we can keep that in mind, it does bring a lot more joy to each of our reads, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bev, oh yes, sorry, Bev, if you would go next and share where you're at and what you're reading and what you've learned from it.
I'm right now at home and it's a noisy day. I'm sorry. I read books. A lot of that. I think I've recorded about 80 books in my 25 years, and at a much greater rate now than before. But I read for the 1 hour program titled Business and the Economy. And because I was a business school professor, that fits very nicely for me. And I have 4 sources. The Wall Street Journal, I fight with them every year over what they want me to pay for the subscription, but I've been a subscriber since 1970. And so I think they should be more lenient with me. But anyway, and then I use The Economist, which is an excellent journal. It's a British magazine, but they have a US version, and that's what I read from. And I use Bloomberg Business Week. And then I also, there's a money section in the Week magazine. So those are my 4 sources. And actually, I left Audio Reader just a short time ago. I'm in the middle of recording that program, which airs on Mondays at 7 a.m. But picking the articles out of the Wall Street Journal, picking any of the articles that I read in this hour, I have to be careful not to be in a position of promoting any investment, for instance. The university actually would take me off the air if they could, if they heard me talking about good stock buys or stock sales or anything of that sort. I read about companies, a lot of companies, and I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are doing well. And I read about companies that are do today. What was I? I'm in the midst, I should say. Um, Schwab is having trouble with its bank. And so reading that story is of more or less general interest. But there are also, there's a writer every day on the second page of the front section about what the Fed is doing. And that's general information. But I have to stay away from specific. I monitor myself because I know I had a colleague in the business school that was pulled off the air. It was pulled out of the classroom because he got to a point of recommending stock buys in his classroom, in his finance class. So the university said we get sued for that. So be very careful. And there's stories that I try to pick varied across that set of 4 magazines. The other magazine that I read every week is The Week, and it has a host of different sections. Um, it it covers life, and it covers it from other newspapers, and they're both conservative and liberal. So on any subject that they're writing about, the news of the day or that week that is prominent, they will bring in their article stuff from the Democrats and the Republicans right now, for instance. So they don't produce the content; they just bring content from other magazines together so that you see as many sides of an issue as you can. And it starts off with just the main stories, and that can be just about anything. But it has a money section also, and it will pull the best columns out of other newspapers or magazines. So it is I would recommend it to anybody who wants to read themselves. It's been around since the mid 90s, I guess. And so those are the 2 programs that I would say I curate. And then I said I read books, of course. And I choose books that I would like to read, and then I get Nick's approval. So that's the curating, I guess.
Yes, definitely. It is the selection component is definitely a challenge, but also I will tell you when folks sent in their information on on the survey that I sent out, many folks said that their favorite thing was indeed selecting their content, and their most challenging thing was indeed selecting their content. So yeah, especially when sometimes you have too much, sometimes you don't have enough. So thank you so much, Bev. Byron, you're kind of next on my screen. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I can and then Jane after Byron, if you're ready. Oh, sorry, you're on mute at the moment, Byron. Let me see if I can.
Hi,
There you go.
everyone.
Gotcha.
I'm Byron Buckner. I, along with Rosemary, produced the African American Hour. I've been doing it for about maybe 3.5 years. And one thing I would like to share are sources of information that I use to get info for my show that anyone can use. And these are free services through the Kansas City, Missouri Public Library. And they may be offered through your public library. Press Reader is one that has news, Press Reader, which has newspapers from around the world. There's also Masterfile Premier, which has articles from popular magazines, newspapers, reference books, and biographies. And there's another one called Newsbank, which has many popular news magazines. And someone mentioned earlier, that was Bev. She mentioned that she was subscribing to the Wall Street Journal. You can access the Wall Street Journal for free through the Kansas City, Missouri Public Library. However, there is a 2-week embargo on their publications. And also they offer the New York Times for free. So that's what I have to offer.
Thank you, Byron. Appreciate that. And I might ask if we follow up, get a couple of those resources from you so that I can make sure I have that. I can reach out to you via email so that we can get
Sure,
that for
sure. And
folks.
I'll even put it in the chat here.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be perfect. Okay, well, thank you, Byron. And
Mhm.
how about you, Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Tedder. I live here in Lawrence. I've been reading for 23 years, so Bev, you've got me beat.
Oh, that's all right. I'm not going to let you catch up.
3 days a week, I read newspapers, and then on the fourth day, on Wednesdays, I record Time Magazine, which is under the program heading National and International News.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not too hard to figure out an order. The hard part is quitting when it's time. I start with the cover article, and then I go to the other side of national and international. For instance, if your cover article is a national one, which of course they mostly have been of late, then I follow that with an international article. And that will take generally at least half of the hour. And then I move to short items, various opinion writers and editorials. And I try to always include the milestones page. That's kind of like reading the obituaries in the newspaper. And really, I enjoy that magazine tremendously, and I appreciate getting to record it. Uh, Other than that, I think it's pretty routine and kind of individual to that magazine.
Okay, well, thank you, Jane. Appreciate those comments. And let's see, on my screen next, I have Carl, and then Penny, I'll have you on deck.
All right. I'm Carl Graves. I do two curated programs. One is called Environmental News. The other is called A Look Back. Environmental News, I'm the best person who has ever recorded environmental news because I'm the only one who's ever recorded environmental news. I used to do Christian Science Monitor, when it was a 5-day-a-week paper,
Right.
and then it stopped publishing, and Lori offered me some options. She said environmental news, and I thought, oh, I'm a member of a terrorist group, the Sierra Club. So yeah, I'll do environmental news. Over the years, I relied quite a bit on the New York Times because when it was a daily paper delivered in town, my friend who delivers the paper would drop off his, but it went away. So now I use two main sources, the Associated Press and Reuters, which each have a climate and environment website. And one thing I've learned to do is copy and paste, print it out, and then I time each of those stories, because the last thing you want to do is run out of time in the middle of an article. So environmental news. Then there's a look back, which I squirreled away from Jane Tedder during the pandemic. And my excuse is that I'm a historian. I have 3 college degrees in history, especially U.S. history, and I love it. But it's been a very rocky road because a number of the publications I started out with have disappeared. History Magazine is gone. American History vanished as a print source. For a while, it was on Zinio, but now it appears to have published its last. But so I use Smithsonian. I use Archaeology Magazine, which are still print sources. I picked up something, a quirky UK publication called History Today, and I'm because there's so little U.S. history content anymore. As a U.S. historian, I have files and files and books and magazines. So I am now in the process of starting to generate my own stories from my own files when it comes to U.S. history. One tip I learned for a look back was I came up with these devices. They are sort of templates for if you have a column which is say 2 inches wide, then how long is it when you're reading for 1 minute of content? So I have those for Archaeology Magazine, for Smithsonian, for History Today. So I can estimate pretty closely how much each article is going to take. And I try and balance it. So I have some US history, some archaeology, and some world history in each.
Thank you, Carl. I love those templates that you've got there. I know that that is often a question that folks have. There's been some studies done that say, like 180 words per minute is what most folks read when they read aloud. But I love that you have your templates because that's always what I say is it really depends on the person and the
Right.
content. But you can make your own sort of template, whether that's just doing a short recording to see how much time it's going to take you to read a section, or like Carl has a nice little tangible that's also helpful too. So
Right. The
thank you, Carl.
Audacity box that Nick put on my machine during the pandemic allows me to click and then I start recording. This is mainly for the Reuters and for the Associated Press.
Okay.
So I know, okay, this is 4 minutes and 3 seconds. This is 2 minutes and 53 seconds.
Thanks, Carl. Okay, Penny, can you go next? Just sharing where you're at and what you read and something you've learned.
The thing that I read, which is curated, is the Midwest highlights, which, considering I'm British, is sometimes a bit of a stretch. But it covers Missouri and Kansas, and it covers a variety of things such as arts, travel, food, sometimes a new business in a place. And I have a ton of resources, including online and physical ones. And the thing for me that I've found is that mine can be date sensitive, so I have to be very careful. I have to make sure that I'm not going to talk about or read something which is already past or is going to happen tomorrow or something. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't get the magazines until it's too late.
Oh.
So that's one thing that I have to be aware of. And then I also have to keep a balance between Missouri and Kansas. So if I start with a Kansas article, I'll continue with a Missouri article. I kind of do what Carl does, but I have so many different things that what I will actually do is that while I'm in the studio, I'll sometimes read for half a minute and measure how long that is, and then kind of go down and see how long I think a particular article is going to take. And I got that idea from you, Carl.
Oh, thank you.
And then the other thing I do is that before I read any article, I have a guesstimate at how long it's going to take me. And I've got much better at actually being able to look at an article and think, yeah, that one's going to take somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes. And another thing that I do is that I always make sure that I have a list of like little fill articles that I can use. So if I've got a minute left at the end, I'll find something really short and sweet. There was something about the biggest cowbell in the world the other day, which I read, which I just needed something to fill in 1 minute at the end.
Yeah.
And that was perfect for that because the biggest cowbell happens to be in Kansas for some reason. I think the main thing I've learned from doing this is just how organized I have to be, because I have to keep track of all the articles that I've read and also keeping track of the ones that are only online. So there's Lawrence Magazine, Eudora Magazine, Manhattan Magazine, trying to keep track of all the ones that are online so that I know which ones I've read. And so for me, just organization is probably key. That's it, really.
Thank you so much, Penny. Yes, as Nick said, these are great tips. I'm so glad we're getting a chance to share them with each other. And I'm making a few little notes as we go so that we can come back around to a couple of those. It's funny that you were talking about the little filler articles. I think it was you, Max, that said what to do with the last 2 minutes is the conundrum that you face sometimes. So thank you, Penny. Those are fun to hear about. And
I go through every magazine. When I get a new magazine, I go through it and I write down every article that I think might be useful. I make a note of any that might be time sensitive. And I make a note of any that are like, oh, that would be great to fill if I have a minute and a half left at the end.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I am going to turn it over to Max and have Max, since that's a good little transition there. So, and then Lori, I think you'll be the last one. I don't know if you're able to talk or not, but if you can after Max, then we'll hand over to Lori.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm Max Mays, and I am in Lawrence in my basement, and as you can tell by books and things behind me, um, I've been reading Discover magazine since I started in 1990, and the biggest challenge for that and also for TV Guide has been the economy because it's been getting smaller and smaller all along. And now Discover Magazine is published only every other month. There's only 6 issues a year. Now, out of that issue, I have to get Discover airs on the first, third, and maybe fifth Saturdays. So I might have to get 5 shows out of it, which is a real challenge since I pretty well eat it up in 2.5. Luckily, Discover Magazine has a website where they publish articles that they are not able to print from a number of different sources. So I fill in with those. The second and fourth Saturdays, I read Science News magazine, which has eliminated, it's every 2 weeks, but I think 4 times a year they combine, but they usually print not double, but maybe another 50%, 150% in that one. So I can survive one way or another. My biggest challenge just arrived, TV Guide, which I will record today because it airs tomorrow at 10:30.
Just got here
And my
here.
wife just literally brought it to me as we were here. And again, this has gone from every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks. So I have to squeeze more out of that as well. So yeah, it's the economy has probably been more of a challenge to me than anything. I did find another website. Science News Magazine publishes another magazine for like high school kids, and they have a website for that one, and uh, with different articles than their regular magazine. So the last time that I did a fifth Saturday, I read uh, from that site. So I'm trying to keep it interesting and so on, but Science News can be a little technical, and this other website eases back on that a little bit. It doesn't really dumb it down. It just sort of takes some of the jargon and stuff out of it. But anyway, anything else you want to know?
No, that's great, Max. I thank you. I mean, I think Lori, you were up, and Bev, I know you've got a comment to make. After Lori, we'll pop up to Bev, I think. Hi, Lori. There you are.
Yes, I'm working on it here.
No worries.
I normally live at Fifth in Ohio, so it's not far to the studio, but I have continued to read from home because it's just a whole lot easier. But right now I'm in Boise visiting a daughter. So I appreciate being able to do it even when I'm out of town. So anyway, I started sometime after my in-laws and my sister-in-law moved out, somewhere in the 2000s. And my mother-in-law had lost her sight in her late 80s, and my sister-in-law, like when she was 19, she's never seen me, but my in-laws had Cindy Baker come and do some PT stuff with her. I think she was a PE teacher and had a business for a while that would come and do exercises with people. And she had an audio reader sticker on her car. So I found out about it that way. And I, like I say, I think I got a thing for 10 years recently. So I guess I've done it sometime more than 10 years, but I don't remember what I started with, but eventually ended up with Missouri NewsHour for a long time, which has some, I suppose, some decisions as far as sounding like it's curated, but recently I've changed to Christian Science Monitor, which is a weekly, and there are choices to make there. And it is kind of a nice switch to go from some pretty small town Missouri news to international news. But I appreciate these types of meetings because you always hear something that you can use. And one thing that I learned early on, thankfully, was that the online version, not the downloaded version of Christian Science Monitor, has a quick read. And it doesn't time that one, but it gives you a time for reading, which is different than reading aloud for the full article. And what I've only done 3, I think, recordings, so I'm really, really new on this. But one thing that I've done often is, because I do just have one publication, which is nice to not juggle 4, I'll read the quick version and then look at the full article and pull some things out that I don't repeat, weren't in the original article, that fleshes out a little more, but kind of is in between as far as time, the thing. And what I've ended up doing, which sounds kind of like what was it Carl does, I've realized it's helpful in the long run to go ahead and type out what I want to say, especially because it's a publication, not a newspaper. It does have a cover photo, and obviously a cover story. So that's what I've been starting with. I hope it's all right that I do that. So there are several photos that I want to concisely and accurately describe and tie into the article. And so anyway, that's what I'm learning still, learning a new thing. I would add, not that it really has anything to do with, but just to tag on what has been said about, and I think it was probably in one of these groups that the percentage of people who may not have sight or have limited vision now have had full vision is pretty high. I think that's a pretty low, like single digits for people who are born blind or lose it early enough they don't really have memory of sight or sighted things. And so my sister-in-law, if I didn't say, my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law were both blind. My sister-in-law from early on, but sighted until 20, appreciates the description that's done at the theater or any of those venues where it just helps literally set the stage, I guess, in her mind for what's happening. One thing I wish that we could do is somehow find out feedback from who's listening, how we're doing, what could be better, what could be different.
Yeah.
Am I reading too fast? I've realized when I've listened to archives that you can adjust there. Sometimes those kinds of changes or manipulations aren't easy to do for someone without their sight if they don't know how to get to the adjustment way to adjust. So I think I do tend to read fast just because I feel like there's so much to get in that hour. But I hope if I am reading too fast, someone tells me, or they know how to slow me down. I figure they get more bang for their buck if I can read fast and they can slow it down.
Thank you, Lori. That's great. I appreciate those comments. And, I will reach out to Martha, or maybe Nick knows this, but we did recently do a redesign of the website that is specifically targeted to our listeners so that they were able to utilize it better with screen readers. And I'm not sure if that includes sort of giving controls of that type of thing. Like you say, it's easy for me to go in there and move the button around and find it and make it faster or slower and that sort of thing. But I'm not sure if there's something in the website that allows for that or if that's even an option. But I appreciate that note. I don't know if Nick knows that or not, but we can follow up and see if that's something that has been included or could be. Because it is nice when you can just speed folks up. I know I've done it in different things that I'm listening to. If I have that option, it's a nice option.
Yeah, I don't think our reader website has that currently because it's just audio MP3 playback. It depends on the device they're listening to. That the device itself could have it. If they're listening through podcasts, they can do it, and I know telephone reader can increase or decrease the speed of reading too. So, but not exactly on our digital archive. I'm not sure with Alexa actually. I know, so same question. If it's Alexa would be a built-in device in that case, and maybe you can just tell Alexa to speak faster. I don't know. I don't remember.
But
Good
good
thing
idea.
If she's smart enough, she should be able to.
Yeah, or she thinks she is. Yeah. And I know people do use that. Folks who are blind and visually impaired, they do use those. They make use of those adjustments. So it's a good thought for sure. Thanks, Laurie.
That's wonderful news, Rosemary. And okay, so I see Max waving, but I know that Bev had another comment that she wanted to
Oh,
share too.
I was a couple of things, two things. It's interesting. We've got Lori and Carl, and then I started with the daily Christian Science Monitor. I was the Monday reader, and one of my finance professor colleagues in the business school read the Friday edition. So we could have covered the paper just for the people on this show. What a loss that daily paper is. My fifth grade teacher was not the normal fifth grade teacher. She recommended that we go home and ask our parents to subscribe to the Christian Science Monitor because it was the best paper in the United States. And I would agree with her, but I haven't been reading it since fifth grade, only since 1970.
Wow.
But anyway, the other thing in terms of since I have these four sources that I put together, I do it pretty much on the spot. And if I realize that I'm spending too long, well-written articles, and I would say most of what I read, I would describe as well-written. You realize that you're using a little more time than you would like to. You can read the first sentence of a paragraph, and if it's well-written, you can go from one first sentence to another first sentence to another first sentence. So I do my curating in a way on the spot, and it has worked well for me after 25 years. So
thank you, Bev. So I take that tip as read the first sentence, and that can give you an abbreviated read for every paragraph. So one sentence of a paragraph, the next paragraph, that first sentence. Thank you.
I only have to do that really at the end of the program as I'm approaching the 56 minutes, then I realize I have at most two more. So then I can do something like that.
And I do appreciate you mentioning the timing too. I know Colin is down at the front desk and working away. So, but I will share that when folks are very aware of that time, as I know y'all are, it does make a difference. It is important to us. It does help for the automations to happen. It also helps for us to be able to, quickly and efficiently edit and upload and get things where they need to be. And without all the work that you do to hit that sort of Goldilocks of right between 56 and 58 or right between 26 and 28, I know that's hard for you all. So I just want to acknowledge we appreciate it. And it does make a difference when you hit that perfect time. Yes, Lori, and I know Max, and I think maybe Melinda too.
I just had a quick question about what you guys do before it's whatever sent away. But I do try and go back and take out the little. I'm getting better at it, but the little big marks on the screen to hopefully save you all time. I assume that is helpful to make those edits myself, and sometimes I have to take gaps out because I've recorded just 30 seconds too long, and I can take up the space between articles or sentences and get back enough time that I don't have to cut out anything. I just have cut out dead space, but I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I can take that quickly. Yeah, mostly like there's a couple of different, I'd say, phases of editing where we check for a volume. We need to process it so it's consistent with everything else, and that's really on our end. That's fine. Everyone, what you send is all great for that. We do just do additional adjustments, and then yeah, gaps, anything that you might have been unaware of, or yeah, any of those kind of loud pops or clicks or lip smacks, all those human things that happen. Yeah, if I appreciate you going ahead and taking time. I mean, most of that we try and get ahead of with pausing and with breathing and etc. So that they never actually get recorded. That's kind of the easiest way to do it, and in the training. But yeah, we're just most of it is checking for cleanliness for a weird word for that, but and then consistency. Yeah, most of it is technical, really. Sometimes if folks kind of lose track of timing and there's some editing required, things like that, all of those things happen. We produce hours and hours of content, so of course, with all of your help, everything that you do before it gets to us is sets us up really well. So yeah, mostly it's just making sure that there's nothing been missed in the best scenario.
Okay, I think Max, you had a comment to
You
share?
just answered my question. Thank you. I was going to ask Nick and Colin, since he was on, what else can we do to help you do your job? Any suggestions and things like that.
I mean, I think everything is kind of covered in how well you all are trained and what excellent readers you are. I mean, some little things, like that first breath is sometimes one that's hard to catch. So taking that, and it feels, I've done it when I'm trying to record, and it feels unnatural to like take your breath, to hold your breath for a second, hit record. But the very minimal we do, if we've got 3 minutes to edit a program, which happens sometimes, check the beginning, check the end, clean it up. If there is a large breath, just so the first thing that people hear is just the words, just hello, rather than any kind of pause. That the top and tail for that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think on the tech side and as far as the audio goes, we've no complaints. Yeah, you guys are all doing amazing. Bev?
Nick, go
Am
ahead.
I out of place to suggest that Lori, if you want to know whether you're reading too fast, you can listen to yourself by going on Sero and picking the program that you have recorded and hear yourself. Every once in a while, when I think I've done a terrible job, I come home and I use Sero to access the audio reader website and listen to myself. You have to listen to yourself when it's being aired, so you have to know the schedule for that. But it does make a difference when you listen to yourself. And I read too fast also.
And the archive. Sero is like the live stream, is one of the apps that hosts our live stream. But you can, on the archive, you can go at any time and find your latest recording. Yeah, and
Okay,
sometimes
Melinda. Sorry.
well, I was just going to say, sometimes that's a way for us to find out some other issues that have happened on the archiving end as well. So feel free to do that, and feel free to let us know if you find something, if something is amiss. It does happen. Again, for the hours and hours and hours that we produce every week and every year, things do fall through the cracks, and computers are not perfect. And some of the humans around here aren't perfect either, tragically. Sorry to break it to you. So I don't know who was next.
Melinda she had her hand up, so go for it,
Quick
Melinda.
idea. I really appreciate all your comments about the time factor. Penelope, I do the same thing you do. I get a magazine, I get a source, and I go through it. Whatever articles are going to work, knowing kind of the length of the articles, having the little stuff that you can use as filler toward the end if necessary. One thing I found was I would have a couple of articles that were long and really, really interesting. And I would start reading and then go, oh no, I'm out of time. and I don't want to edit this. This is too good. So I'd have to go back and erase and put something else in. So what I've started doing is if I've got something that's really long and I don't want to mess with it, I read it first. And then I go back to the start and I know, well, I've just read 28 minutes worth of content. So now, and that's going at the end. So now I've got whatever many minutes to fill up the necessary time. And that has changed my life. It has made things so much easier because then I can just find the shorter articles to take me up to the longer articles that I've already recorded. And it has made things so much easier. So that's one of the little tricks that have worked for me. I just record the long stuff first because I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to have to cut it or edit it or mess it up. So that has helped me.
Thanks, Melinda.
Great.
I saw lots of nodding heads saying, "Oh, that's a great idea."
That
So
whole time issue is
Mhm.
it's interesting.
It is. And again, it is important. So we do appreciate that. Go ahead, Lori.
Well, I'm assuming that maybe not everyone uses the Odyssey app. Is that
Audacity.
what y'all?
Yeah.
I've only recently, and maybe I only recently started keeping track actually. In the document, I do my text, what do I want to read, noting what number an article starts with and the timing of it. So if I need to go back and find that and edit it down, or and the Christian Science Monitor, they have this little heading that I still haven't gotten the habit of looking for to put at the beginning of why we wrote this. So I sometimes have to record it at the end and put it back where it needs to be. And it's helpful to have that to go to instead of like hunting for it, playing up
Right.
a little bit farther, like that. So
I
if you
think,
haven't
and
figured out something to keep track, then
I think the
that's what I
technical
started
term
doing.
for that is the timestamp. Is that right, Nick? Colin? Is that I just say that because sometimes that has helped me identify the number that it starts with, the number it ends with. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, yeah, the timestamp. And I'm also curious if that is if
Well,
you're
Odyssey does these little file names. Every time you've started and stopped, there's a number to that. That's what I'm
okay.
talking about.
Yeah,
Because I may
creates
have 6 or 8 of those in one article.
regions, or it depends. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it just, we haven't had a kind of an audio, a remote reader audio workshop or gathering in a while. And as we have more, we've new batches of folks joining, and that could be something, just additional tips and tricks, because you can use markers as well in some other programs. So, I mean, whatever working for you is the right answer, and if writing it down on a piece of paper is what works for you, that's fine. But there are other tools as well. Most of the time, what we're trying to do is just make you aware of them. And again, no requirement. It really, what works for you is the right answer. So. Yeah, but it's good to know that to be aware of it, right? That's the useful piece.
Okay, well, I am going to say that we are about at our time, y'all. We of course started off this conversation, and there were about 5 or 6 slides that we were going to talk through, but you all definitely knew the content that we were going to speak to because all of the conversation pieces that we wanted to touch on have been touched on. So as always, audio reader volunteers, our volunteer broadcasters are just fabulous folks that share great information, not only with our listeners, but also with each other. Yes, Rosemary, I see your hand.
I just saw Colin pop back, and I think he's the one that helps put things together.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for what you do, Colin. I know
Yay.
mine's sometimes a bit of a mess, but
No, not
always
at
make
all.
it sound
Thank
good.
you, Rosemary.
Sure.
It's good
Yes,
to
we
see you
we
and
appreciate you,
Byron.
Colin.
I don't think I've met it before, but
Yeah.
yeah, I love both your programs. They're great.
Yeah.
Colin is the
Thank you.
man.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say, as well, we talk a lot of times about not editorializing, excuse me, and being the eyes and not the brain. I would say you all though have that kind of sweet spot of the personality that you bring. You are making decisions, you are curating, and I would hope we don't always get to hear it, but anyone who listens to your show, that has to filter in, right? That they understand, like thinking of Melinda, the art, how you described how you think about arts and culture. That all adds up, and that does create a relationship of sorts. Again, you're not offering your opinion, right? We're always just stopping short of telling people what we think as the readers. But curating is a whole different skill, and not everybody does it at Audio Reader. And appreciate you for it. And I'm sure you have fans. I would go so far as to, without giving, not fans of your opinion or whatever, right? But fans of the way you put your show together, and that is distinct and special. So thanks for that. And it's extra work. So
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. If as always, send us an email or reach out if there's anything you're interested in, other resources, or you need other instructions. We're glad to help out, and just always appreciate y'all. So thank you so much for sharing all these great tips.
Thank you.
Headed back to Audio
Gosh,
Reader.
it was
Yeah.
really great to hear
Love
from
that.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Safe travels if you're traveling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Safe travels.